ready. Looks like it's a fight. Down you come. You're going down fast. Come on, come on! My turn.
Combinations.
Let's go! Weapon gives me the upper hand here. Yeah! Gotcha! Gold plates are I yield.
A sharp. Are you injured? Defense. You've mastered combining it. Good cut. Good work. Spear. Combat. Excellent combination. Arreo. Good.
Looks like it's a fight. over here, you flaming hunk of scrap!
That's him! Firepot's right on his heels. He's no match for it alone. Come on.
Machine can't move. I could grapple in for a big hit.
Alright, I think that's the end of it.
She can't move. I could grapple in for a big hit.
up, squad! Soon we march! The Sky Clan will fall!
to fight. Time to waste. Get this done. Shut down!
My ears are full of songs. My heart is sad and now I'd rather just be alone. I listen when you talk. Your words all make sense, but underneath it all, I hear where we are going with this. I am raindrops in the flood. I am emptiness. I am home. I am lonely in a crowd. But when you hear you're be near me, stay here with me in the flood. Dreams I left. I had courage like the beast. My eyes, they never fled. My arms would always reach. You harden with your words. Maybe fear is armor too. My voice is that strong. When hurricanes come running from you, I am raindrops in the flood. I am emptiness. I am home. I am lonely in a crowd. But when you hear me, you'll be near me. Stay here with me in the flood. Little child inside is just so strange. When hands aflame,
designed to survive against more than that.